You captivated me in that conversation because it was so heavy on my mind, all the failures I was seeing happening with outreach to people with mental illness who are homeless in New York City. So when you were telling me about what you all were doing in Newark, I fell in love with the idea. Talk to us about the way you are bridging the gap between folks who are dealing with some of the most extreme forms of trauma and on top of houselessness and housing insecurity and making sure that they have their mental health needs met.
Absolutely. So, I'm a mental health clinician. I've been doing that for some time now, and I'm grateful for the opportunity every time to sit with someone, hold space with them, and really just make room for them to share their story and give them what they need as much as I'm able. So, what happened last year was that I was able to partner with Ms. Bay, who is also the executive director of Newark Emergency Services for Families, which is a nonprofit that's been in the work with people for a very long time in Newark and serving people from throughout Essex County. So one of the things that they do there is that they have a drop-in center that mostly supports those who are homeless, even living on the street, but anyone who needs to eat. And they support them with breakfast and lunch every day, as well as an opportunity to take a shower, wash your clothes, use the phone without any with limited barriers as possible. So what wanted to bring on as well was an opportunity for counseling services and those kinds of supports, which weren't necessarily available. They were doing case management services, but they didn't have anything, at a skilled level to support. And those many of us are aware that some people who face homelessness or those types of financial and housing instability may also then deal with trauma before or during that experience, right? And they may have had other kinds of things go on. And so we're offering this counseling without charge for as much time as the clients want, really. So myself and my colleague are there. Sankofa Love is there on site providing these services 3 days a week. And folks can come in by arrangement. And even if they just need to drop in, we're also available for crisis support as well on site.
So one of the reasons that this was so fascinating to me is because you all are targeting a population that a lot of municipalities just sort of throw their hands up in the air about. It's like, oh, they're housing insecure. I've seen that the governor of New York is now saying that they're going to do forced commitments. To be clear, when I walk through Penn Station, when I walk on the like, it feels like I'm in a scene out of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. There is definitely an overwhelming amount of mental instability navigating in our public spaces. And just all of us are surrounded by people who at any given time might be going through something really challenging or difficult for them to navigate. But the folks who are in this particular demographic, housing insecure, don't have most of their basic needs met. The need for mental health supports for that population in particular feels overwhelming to so many. Can you talk us through your model? Because I think what you all did and are doing in Newark is something that should be replicated across the country. Give us a sense as to what if I'm housing insecure and I'm in this demographic target. Talk to us about how I might show up to get your services and what might your service model provide for me that the traditional mental health service provisions don't consider.
Right. So thank you for that question. Essentially, well, the program is called Resilience Works. And the notion behind it was really, and it originally was supported through our dearly departed Congressman Donald Payne's office. And so we've been able to continue the partnership and continue the funding now into year two with other funding, thankfully. But what its resilience works, and the goal is to really help folks get, as we say, on their feet, to help people who are trying to just kind of get a little bit of stability back. For some folks, that means I just need to manage this emotional issue or anything else in order to get back to work. For other people, it might be a little bit longer of a way, right? But the model is really to target folks who have a desire of their own to move forward, right? To kind of try to grapple with some of these issues. So folks are many of them are self-referred, right? So all I do is just kind of say in the morning, hey, everybody, my name is Regina. I'm a social worker. Has anybody had a positive experience with a social worker ever before? Right. Well, if not, then hopefully I will be that, right? And so then we just kind of have conversations. We do things in small group while folks are waiting for their meal or for their shower about how to breathe, how to cope, what stressors are going on. We try to move the TV from the news to the music or something else. And then, but the service is also available to anyone else in town who's seeking and may not have direct access, or maybe they've had a negative experience with counseling or this type of support. And so they maybe just want to kind of come and try it out, dip their toe a little bit, and they're welcome to come and even just chit chat. And so it's been a positive experience. Over the course of the first year, we've served over 500 people, even if it was just for short term. Because, like I said, sometimes people are reticent to do these things. So even if you
Right.
tried it out, or maybe you just, saw me or saw my colleague there, and you did one of our breathing sessions in small group that you had a positive experience. And so then when those mental health outreach workers come up to you in Penn Station, you maybe have a different idea about them.
Mm, okay. So let's talk about the nature of outreach to a population that is by definition transient, right? Often struggling with the same mental illnesses that all the rest of us may be struggling with. But I personally, and I this is just a belief I have. I don't know if this is actually true, but I've always sort of believed that if you are already a part of a species, i.e., humans, that can experience mental health stress and disorders, to layer on top of that housing insecurity and everything that comes with that, to me, is going to exacerbate whatever mental health issues you may have had. So, yes, there is a lot, I think, of what we who are in the housed community see as a lot of mental illness in the houseless or housing insecure population. But I'm like, dog, just imagine you don't have your needs met. Like, you're going to be a little, like, it just feels like you're going to be suffering
Yeah.
from some extra things that you might not be suffering from right now.
And you know what?
And
I'm sorry to cut you off. I didn't
no, go
realize
right ahead.
that in the same way as I was coming through my training, but in our field, and as with a lot of healthcare, you get mentoring, you get, supervised and sponsored through. And so one of my clinical supervisors one time said to me, because I was talking about this woman who I was working with in a crisis center, I said, "Oh, she's fine. She's fine. She seems perfectly oriented, and her thinking is intact." And my supervisor said to me, "But Regina, you said that she sleeps in the bus shelter." I said, "Yeah."
Mm,
So if she is able to believe that she's safe there,
mm,
there's something, that's not what most of us
right,
believe. So there's some
right.
delusion there. But what I've also learned is that some of these things are coping. This is how folks are coping with their circumstances. Some of our coping techniques, we develop them over time, all of us. Some of them are what we call adaptive coping techniques, right? So breathing, and let's stretch, and let's do yoga, let's take a walk. And then there's maladaptive coping techniques like dissociation, smoking, drinking, shopping
Mm,
too much sex, all these different things that, hey, it works for me. And so
right.
that's everyone. But also to your point about the mental illness and housing instability and how they go together, sometimes one precipitates the other as a causation. So I'm housed, I'm firmly housed, I'm with my family, right? Maybe I live with my parent or grandparent who's aging. That person may need to go live someplace else, or they may pass away, and now I'm not as firmly housed because I'm not as supported,
Mm,
right? Other people around me don't understand the way I think, the way I move, the strange things that I say, and I didn't, so then people fall into instability oftentimes in that way.
wow. 866-801-8255, 866-801-TALK. If I'm listening to this and I'm in some municipality across this nation and I'm trying to think about how to address the same issue, what advice would you give for municipalities that are trying to design programs like this, that are trying to roll out programs like this? Because I feel like in New York City, we're living an example of what not to do. Like, there was an effort to forcibly remove people who were in the throes of mental health illness, and place them, forcibly commit them. You didn't have the subsequent additional funding for those places that were receiving them, so that they were overburdened, and that meant that they were not able to provide the same level of services that they had traditionally been able to provide to their existing clients. And it seems as though incorporating policing tactics to address mental health illness is something that we often hear a lot about. But as somebody who's doing this successfully, seeing it successfully in a city like Newark, which I gotta be honest with y'all, Newark and New Jersey is like an amazing space right now. I don't know, I'm not a long-term Newarker. We just, kind of dabble our feet in Jersey recently, but it's an amazing city. and what's happening there and the work that you're doing on the ground matters so much. What advice would you have for people who are either looking at existing programs that are not working, or people who are thinking about, okay, Lurie just gave us this charge and we got to figure out how we going to do whatever we going to do to make this community better. What would I need to think about if I wanted to roll out a program like this? Best practices and advice that you would have for municipalities and individuals trying to work on this issue.
Thank you for that question. I have 2 points for that. The first one is that before I landed in private practice and partnering with this agency in this way that we're talking about now, I was a police social worker. I was,
Mm.
I was a
So
police
you've
social
seen it
worker.
from all
Yeah,
sides.
but not for police, but with victims and survivors, right? And so this happened in Jersey City for a short time and in Newark for quite a long time. And now Newark has quite a few social workers that work in tandem with the police. And this was part of the way that our mayor has decided to sort of defund the police, but instead to kind of funnel the funds into employing some of these workers, these outreach workers and social workers and so forth. And so I
Oh,
always want
wait. So don't remove money from police, but have money to police incorporate all these other additional
change
services?
they changed the budget as far as I
Look at
understand
Ross
it. They changed the
Baraka,
budget. I was
mayor of Newark.
yeah, I was a social worker on the police budget. And when I left, there were like five more. And now there's like 10. I don't know. It's grown. It's grown quite a lot. And so and that by itself was innovative and visionary and really has from what I've seen, done been positive for the city. So that's
Hmm.
one thing. The other part about, best practices is there's this thing that exists, this resource that a lot of us can access for just lay people called mental health first aid. You can take it, I can take it. Our brother who was just on the phone a moment ago with all of that great rich history, he can take it too, right? And the course is a day-long course. You can find this course for free at different places. And it teaches you how to, number one, recognize when someone is in a mental health risk, and number two, how to respond and give local resources. It's called Mental Health First Aid. I'm not the person who created it, but I will constantly advocate for people to reach out and try to find out how to take the mental health first aid course, because it will help you with yourself, your family, and the people
And I'm
around.
seeing mentalhealthfirstaid.org.
Yes.
Get trained. You know, Regina, this is reminding me because when we were sitting down at that event, we ended
Mhm.
up something about our conversation also brought us to the concept of the talking bench in Zimbabwe. And for those of you who are not familiar with the talking bench, it's basically and Regina, Regina, why don't you explain it? Because you knew about it, and I was like, I know that story, but
Because I'm really always excited for opportunities for everybody to get involved. The other thing that happened in New Jersey a long, long time ago, but I also really like to talk about, is the fact that in New Jersey, we kind of did away with the idea of mandated reporters. There are certain things that are part of the public risk, yes. Public health, yes. But public challenges. We all are responsible to report when we know that there's a baby somewhere who's being hurt or mistreated, right?
mm,
In New Jersey, all citizens should report, is what the statute now says about that. I think when it comes to mental health and other realms of health as well, all citizens need to be involved because we're all dealing with this. This is an international mental health crisis since COVID. This is why we have the three-digit number now through the FCC .988 if you're in a mental health crisis, right? Because they know that everybody is struggling from grief to the trauma of isolation. It's widespread. And so it's not just the homeless and people who have these life stressors. It's business folks jumping out of windows, Lurie.
mm.
Really, the suicide rate has increased tremendously. So I really encourage people to really dig in and learn what you can about just resources that are available to you locally.
Wow, this is amazing. So I'm looking at, so y'all, mentalhealthfirstaid.org is the website. Newbie, I just dropped it in the chat. Jonah, please tweet this out or skeet it out on Blue Sky. They say adult mental health first aid teaches adult learners how to assist fellow adults, while youth mental health first aid courses teaches adult learners how to assist adolescents between the ages of 12 and 18, completely in person through instructor-led training, partially in person or completely virtual. So they've got options options, y'all. Oh my God. And so yes, the talking bench in Zimbabwe, y'all, it's basically people, they put out these public benches, and if you sit on the bench, there's a signal that you can give that say, yo, I need somebody to talk to. And just any random person who has been recipient of this training can sit on the bench next to you, random stranger, and you get to talk to them, pour out your little heart, all your thoughts, all your worries, all your fears. And the beautiful thing about it is, as I heard Dr. Raquel Martin once say, that your relationship with your therapist is the only self-interested relationship you're allowed to have, where the sole point of your interaction with the therapist is to help make you better. That's the point of the talking bench. And that feels like a lot of what this work looks like, this mental health first aid. This is the first time I'm learning about this. This is amazing.
Yeah, and so I'm just, I was, turned on by that notion of the talking bench just because, like I said, it shares the responsibility in community. It also helps us to build community. And like I said, a lot of us are so isolated, so just, in our own and just concerned about ourselves and our families. And that makes sense, and we should make time for that at the same time, especially right now when, the doors are closing or we're worried the doors are closing. We really have to make and create and enrich our bonds within the communities. And so really kind of getting resources and strengthening your own capacity to, when you have the time, when you have the space in your heart to say, hey, do you need something? You all right? How can I help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, this is amazing. And this is the sort of innovative work that we're going to have to engage in, because while the audience don't know, and I'm gonna do this at risk of somebody in the audience. We have one audience member who gets upset when I let people know who are listening what my guest looks like. She tried to take me to task for identifying this brother as a black man, even though he identifies as black man. Regina is a woman from the global majority. She's a part of our community. And Regina Amina Bay, the sister who leads Newark Emergency Services, is also a part of our community. These are two women who are leading this work coming together. Raz Baraka, mayor of Newark, New Jersey, a part of the global community. Y'all, the answers that we need are in us. The answers that we need to solve these problems are within our capacity, which is why we bring experts like Regina to this show, so that we can have not just a model of what success can look like, but so that we can have the spark, some sense of imaginative approach to how we can resolve some of the issues in our own community. Now, Regina, I know that the work that you're doing is not free. It requires resources. So if somebody wanted to support your work financially, if they wanted to donate to this effort, where would they go? How would they follow you? How would they connect with you? What's your social media? What's your website? How do they pay you to get therapy for those who are not in this particular target population? Give us the tea on your connections.
No, thank you so much. So the Resilience Works program, like I said, is happening on site at Newark Emergency Services for Families. It's a collaboration between my business and Love LLC and Newark Emergency Services. That location is 982 Broad Street, downtown Newark. So those services are happening in person. I, as a clinician, and I have a few associates in my business, we see clients based on their insurance, and our office is at 17 Academy Street in downtown Newark. My website is www.sankofa-love.com. And you can always kind of check things out, read a little bit, request a consultation for 20 minutes for free, for sure, and that's fine. And then, or we can get over the phone. Yeah, so this is those are some of the ways to link up with services.
I love that. And I got to be honest with you, it gives me a lot of optimism and a lot of hope when I run into people who, frankly, are already doing the thing that I'm like, somebody should have a solution to help the people who are homeless get mental health support. And then, boom, you're like, hey, I'm right here. That's what I do. Hi, Regina Fitch.
And
That's what I
I
do.
want to make sure to give credit to the fact that this work has been happening for a long time. We are not the only ones who recognize that folks who are dealing with homelessness, many of them also deal with mental health issues. And so the hospitals are involved in this and so forth. And so sometimes we refer to them as well. If somebody's in crisis, the agency may not necessarily be, and what I mean by in crisis, like, getting ready to hurt themselves or hurt somebody else.
Right, right.
And so we do what we can to kind of band-aid things to safety pin them up enough. And then we try to support them with, referring them to the hospitals and so forth, and folks who need medication management too, which can kind of help. And that's something that is a difficult conversation to have with my people. And so we approach it very gently and delicately and with time. I don't usually enforce that to people. I'm not a prescriber, so I don't make people go get on meds, but if I've been working with you for 8 weeks and you're still having panic attacks, maybe we should talk about it.